The first time I cut off the neighborhood's water supply, it was almost theatrical. I crouched by the back hedge, sun warming the shingles above me, birds chirping like an audience waiting for the show to start, and with one deliberate twist of the valve, the entire street went silent. Sprinklers coughed, dry faucets sputtered to air, and lawns that had been smugly green began their slow death march toward brown. I dusted my hands off, went back to my coffee, and smiled because this wasn't an accident. This was payback. My name's Ethan Walker, late 30s, and I've lived on Elmwood Lane long enough to know how things work here. Manicured lawns gossip at every corner, and an HOA run by one woman, Linda Collins. If there was ever a queen without a crown, it was her. Cardigans, clipboard a smile sharp enough to cut glass, she thrived on control. And when my hedge the boxwood I'd cared for meticulously for years turned yellow overnight, I knew exactly whose hands were behind it. Someone had poured poison straight into the soil. Perfect line, clean kill, and the morning after Linda walked by with her gaggle of friends, her eyes sliding over my dying hedge, her voice syrupy. Sweet. Oh no, what happened here? Looks diseased. You might want to rip it out before it spreads. That smile wasn't pity. It was victory. I clenched my jaw, forced a tight knot, and raised my mug like I was toasting her cruelty. She walked on, leaving the smell of lavender lotion in her wake, and I stood there with the kind of fury that tastes metallic. That hedge wasn't just shrubs, it was privacy. My green wall against her prying eyes. I'd followed every rule, trimmed it to regulation height, but it didn't matter. She wanted it gone because she couldn't control it, and now she thought she'd won. The notice came the next day. Bold red letters slapped on my door. Immediate compliance required. Remove dead hedge. Replace with HOA-approved shrubs. Deadline 14 days. I laughed, an ugly midnight bar fight kind of laugh. This wasn't about plants. This was about power. And power, I realized, was something I had more of than she knew. Because half this cul-de-sac's water supply ran through an old easement line buried under my yard. A decades-old arrangement everyone had forgotten about. Everyone except me. That valve sitting quietly on my property controlled their showers, their sprinklers, their fountains. And I intended to use it. At first, nobody noticed. By noon on Saturday, though, whispers started. Barbara's husband was cursing on his phone about low pressure. 2 doors down, someone dragged their laundry back and washer bone dry. By evening, Linda was at my door. "Have you noticed the water?" she asked, eyes darting past me like she might catch a reservoir hiding in my kitchen. "Mine's fine," I said, sipping casually. "Shower was great this morning. Maybe it's localized." Her lips pinched, then smoothed. "We'll be contacting the city." "Good idea," I said cheerfully and shut the door with a laugh. Watching her spine stiffen as she walked away felt better than it should have. By Sunday, the neighborhood looked like a drought-stricken desert. Lawns, crisping kids with empty water guns, sprinklers dead in the grass. The HOA called an emergency meeting in Linda's driveway. Folding chairs lined up like a courtroom, half the street shouting about laundry showers, flower beds. Linda stood tall, clipboard in hand. "This is unacceptable. We cannot live without reliable utilities. If the city won't solve it, we'll escalate ourselves." Then she did it. Her eyes flicked to my house. Voice sharp. "It's peculiar, isn't it? One property hasn't reported any issues." Dozens of heads turned. I raised my glass, grinned lazily. "Nope, plenty of water here. Maybe you folks just need newer pipes." A ripple of laughter, a wave of muttering. Linda bristled. She wanted to accuse me outright, but she didn't have proof, and without proof she was stuck. Still, the suspicion grew. The water company rolled in, opened manholes, checked lines, shook their heads. Everything worked fine. The crisis was local, which meant someone was responsible. And suspicion, I knew, is poison. It doesn't need evidence, just time. The longer the faucets stayed dry, the more the cracks spread. Neighbors snapped at each other. Friends whispered accusations. And through it all, Linda tried to hold her empire together with fines and threats. She mailed notices demanding lawns stay green during a drought she couldn't explain. Hypocrisy so thick it was laughable. But even as the chaos amused me, there were nights when doubt gnawed at me. I'd sit by the dead hedge gloves, muddy from digging at poisoned roots, and wonder if I'd gone too far. Was I really doing this for justice, or had I just become petty fighting a war over shrubs? There was a moment staring at the brittle leaves when I almost gave up. I thought about calling the city, letting them fix it, moving on. But then I remembered Linda's smile, the smug tilt of her chin, the notice taped to my door. She hadn't just killed a hedge, she'd tried to erase me. And that was when my doubt hardened into resolve. I wasn't backing down. Linda, though, wasn't letting go either. She patrolled at night with a flashlight, peering into yards, muttering about illegal taps. One night I caught two figures spray-painting hoarder across my fence. I stepped out quietly, hands in pockets, voice calm. "Gentlemen, you've got the wrong idea, but remember what goes around comes around." They bolted, leaving their cans behind. I didn't chase. I didn't need to. Fear, when left to simmer, does more damage than shouting ever could. By the 10th day, Linda was unraveling. She stomped from door to door, demanding updates, accusing residents of hoarding clipboard shaking in her fist. Neighbors rolled their eyes, muttered under their breath. The Queen of Elmwood Lane was losing her grip. And then came the twist, the financial leaks. Screenshots of HOA expenses. Barbara's little reimbursements that weren't so little charges coded as community improvements that were clearly personal splurges. I didn't leak them, but I didn't need to. The effect was nuclear. Suddenly, Linda wasn't just failing at water, she was stealing from everyone. Her empire cracked. That's when the confrontation came. A meeting on the cul-de-sac lawn chairs in a circle, nearly every resident there. Linda marched into the center with a bullhorn. Face red, voice shrill. "This man is responsible. He has sabotaged us. He's laughing while we suffer." Dozens of eyes turned to me on my porch. I set down my mug, walked slowly into the circle. "Linda," I said evenly, "you've accused me for weeks. You've dug in my yard, spread lies, waved bylaws like weapons. But where's your proof? Where's a single shred of evidence?" Murmurs rippled. A neighbor held up their phone video of Linda and her husband trying to pry my fence open with a crowbar. Another waved copies of the leaked financials. Shouts erupted. "You used our money. You broke into his yard." Linda's face twisted, clipboard trembling. "You'll regret this," she spat, but her words fell flat. The vote came quickly. Overwhelming majority. She was stripped of her title, her clipboard, her throne. I watched as she stormed away shouting about conspiracies and enemies. Neighbors shook their heads. The queen had fallen. And me? I went back to my porch, sat down, lifted my mug. The hedge was gone, but so was she. Justice. I thought doesn't always need a gavel or a badge. Sometimes it just needs patience, silence, and the right leverage. Don't ever mistake power for control. Abuse it, and it'll bury you faster than any enemy ever could.